Good evening, everybody. It's Thursday night once again, and it's time for Thursday night with Tim. How are you doing tonight? I hope that you are doing well and everything is good. And well, I am pre-recording these, but I try to post them on Thursday, at least Thursday evening, so that you can have them and have them all week long. And hopefully, you look at these. 15, 20-minute devotionals, and hopefully they do you some good. And right now we are going through the fruit of the Spirit. Last week we did kindness, and today we are going to look at the fruit goodness. Good, whether it be seen to be so or not, or goodness means good, whether it is to be seen or not to be seen. Moral excellence. The word goodness is used 28 times in the Bible, almost always to describe or attribute to God his goodness towards man or Israel, depending on where it's at in the Bible, Old Testament or New Testament. And the New Testament almost always used to describe moral character towards each other. Why we should have goodness. Why should we have goodness? Why should we strive to have this quality, as Peter lists the fruit of the Spirit in 2 Peter chapter 1? Why should we have this character goodness, this quality? Well, first of all, as Jeremiah 31:14 says, that we are to be satisfied with God. You know, God demands to be first with us. It's a shame that we in society, man, has moved away from being satisfied with God. And it's just not our day and time. We can look through this throughout the history of man. Man has always moved away from being satisfied with God. Go all the way back to the Garden of Eden. Man was in a garden that God had created. He set it in between two of the four great rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, bordered it on, I believe, the east and west side of it. He put them in an area that was suited for life, suited for them. All they had to do was tend the garden, work it, move things around here and there. You know, that's something that we don't always think about, is God has always wanted man to be busy working. I think that's part of our problem in today's society, is that we no longer view work, employment, if you will, as something being good. But God has always wanted man to be busy, not busybodies, as Paul says in 2 Thessalonians, but busy doing good works, always busy helping each other out as much as possible as we can, not enabling others to do nothing, but to help them out when they need help. But getting back to being satisfied with God, all they had to do was tend the garden and not eat of the fruit of good and evil, the knowledge of good and evil. That's all they had to do. And the benefits, if they would have kept that command, would have been eternal life, because they could eat of all the other trees, including the tree of life, whenever it was in bloom. They could eat of that fruit, but not of the tree of good and evil. But what happened? Satan enters the picture, and he says, is it true that you can eat of any fruit of the garden? And Eve tells the serpent, no, we can eat of every tree, but we can't eat of the tree of good and evil, the knowledge of good and evil, because the day that we do, we will die. We can't even touch it, she says to the serpent. And the serpent says, you will surely not die. For the day that you eat of the fruit, you will become like God in knowing good and evil. And what did Eve do? She saw that the fruit was pleasant to look at. She reached down and touched it. She did not die, as she was told. probably by Adam, because God said you can just, God said you can't eat of it. Didn't say you couldn't touch it. Couldn't say you couldn't look at it. Just can't eat of it. She reached out and she touches the fruit, saw it was pleasant. She took a bite and saw that it was good to eat, and she ate of it, and she gave it to Adam to eat of it. And what happened? Really, they was not satisfied with God. They didn't want to wait to be like God, or did not want to try to see that they was already like God more than they were after they ate of the fruit, because they lost their innocence. God is innocent, although the innocence that Adam and Eve had in a way was not quite the innocence of God. God is not guilty of anything wrong. Well, Adam and Eve was too. I guess their part of their innocence was naive. God's not naive. He knows what will happen. He knows the good, the good and the bad side of everything. Adam and Eve didn't, and so there was a childlike naiveness and innocence that they had, but they lost that whenever they took the bite of the fruit. Also, to be good, why we should have goodness is to be filled with moral uprightness, as Paul says in Romans 15, verse 14. To be filled with moral uprightness, to have God's righteousness, a quality that we need in this world. Not that we can judge our fellow man with the righteousness of God. The only way we can judge the righteousness with the righteousness of God is if we compare someone to God's word, and we don't condemn that person. We just know that they are not doing what is right. We need to go to them in love and in the spirit of kindness and gentleness and in love to try to correct that person, if it's a brother and sister, or to go to that person who is living an immoral, godless life, to try to turn away from that sinful life, so that they may be able to have salvation and to be right even when no one sees us. You ever play the game What If with somebody? Maybe you kind of think about it with your friends. People my age used to do it when we was younger, 20, 30 years younger, or maybe even 40 years younger, or something like that, or maybe 50 years younger. Can't go much further back than that. I could go 58, I guess, but then I wouldn't be having a game. I'd be a 1-year-old. But sometimes we play What If, especially as young adults. And a lot of times young adults need money, don't we? As older adults do too. Don't just think it's a young adult problem. But sometimes we play the what if. What if you was in the parking lot of a store and you was walking towards a door and you found money? Well, how much money are we talking about? Well, what if you just found, back in my day, $20? Well, $20 back when I was younger, 30 years ago, that'd make me 30-ish. Was still something to be thought about. $20 still bought quite a bit. Gas was only $1 something a gallon. It was, you could buy a tank of gas basically with $20. Well, did I see someone drop it? No. Well, if I'm looking around, I'll look around and I don't see anyone looking for money. I'm going to stick it in my pocket and not say nothing. Okay. What if it's 50 or 100? Or what if it's $1,000 or more? What would you do? Oh, what would you do? 150? 100? $50 even today? That's, well, for my truck, that's close to being a tank full of gas if it's not a tank full of gas. That would save me $50. $100? Oh, that's a tank full of gas, and taking 2 or 3 people out to lunch or supper, maybe. Kind of hard to believe that we spend $50 at a cafe nowadays or a restaurant, but it's true we do. Or $50, I could stick that in my pocket and I could save it for a time when I really need it. Maybe I could put it into the bank. $1,000? Well, I don't know about you, but $1,000 is still a lot of money to me, even though I make that at least every 2 weeks. But $1,000 is a lot of money to me. I just don't have that sitting around to spend. What would I do? Well, the human side of me and the person who wants to do what's right would say, well, 50 to 100, even $1,000 or more, I would probably take it to the front office of the store and say, I found this money out there, and if anyone comes looking for it, it's theirs. We used to do that. Even with lesser denominations, except for maybe $1 to $5, we used to do that. And I know nowadays we have cards, debit cards, and we use them a lot. And if you use cash nowadays, people look at you like you're strange. But see, that's kind of what goodness does, the moral uprightness, to do good, whether it be seen to be or not. Part of that moral excellence. This is a true story. I was walking into work one day. The salesman and I was walking to work, and I was fixing to get up on a step, and he says, "Wait a minute, Tim. Wait a minute. Don't move." And so I stopped, and he reached down, and there were some weeds growing up by the stairs, by the steps, and he did find a $50 bill. And I'm like, how did you see that? He says, I just happened to look down and see an off-colored green. I think it's because he was a salesman. But whatever it was, he found $50. And I said, what are you going to do with it? He says, I'm going to take it inside, and I'm going to keep it. I'm going to put it underneath my placemat up front. And if anyone comes in asking for $50, it's theirs. So I said, that's fair. He said, if not, me and you will have lunch together. I said, it's whatever you want to do. You found it. He says, well, you was right there. It's like, yeah, but you found it. And that's what we did. And he kept it up there for 2 weeks. No one came in. No one came by and asked for it. And after the 2 weeks, he says, let's go to lunch. And that's what we did. He had that moral character to do what was right. And all he would have had to do was say, oh, I dropped a $50 bill and stuck it in his pocket and kept on going. But he did not do that. To do what is right, whether to be seen or not. That's also what Paul says to do in Philemon's chapter 1:14 when he's talking to Philemon about Onesimus coming back to him. He tells him, says, I know that you will do what is right. Here, to do what was right in the case of Philemon was to do the right thing in relationship to not holding Onesimus to judgment and doing harm to Onesimus, because Onesimus was a slave to Philemon. And apparently Onesimus had done something to the point where he felt that if he stayed with Philemon under his household, that he would be punished and punished severely. So he runs away and goes to Rome, and that's where Paul finds him in prison. And Onesimus gets released, or Paul meets Onesimus somehow in Rome and converts Onesimus, and he becomes a follower, a disciple of Christ, a Christian, and goes, and Paul sends him back to Philemon, and Paul tells Philemon that I know you will do what is right. So can we have kindness? We talked about being kind. Can we have kindness without goodness? These are something to think about here for just a couple of minutes. Can we have gentleness without goodness? I don't think we can without having ulterior motives. I don't think we can even have faithfulness without goodness, without having ulterior motives. And I picked out 3 examples with each one of those about why I think we cannot have kindness without goodness except with an ulterior motive. How many of us have heard someone in a family? Maybe you're with some friends, or maybe you're with a friend that goes home, maybe for a holiday, and there's other family members there, and there is someone out that's just married into the family. And something just seems off about them, about the way they act. You just get that bad vibe. And you're sitting there, you're listening to them talk, and you don't say nothing, and you just watch them, and you just hear them talk, and you find out that they're just being kind to the family and to the person that they've married to, just for the inheritance, that personal gain. Oh, soon as I get the inheritance, soon as he gets the inheritance, or soon as she gets the inheritance, it's mine and I'm gone. Maybe it's a house. Maybe it's money. Maybe it's a car. Whatever it is, the inheritance, that's all they want for personal gain. Or they're being gentle. Maybe you want something and you really don't care about the person that has it, but you want to be sure that you're going to get something from them for personal gain once again, kind of like Ahab did with Naboth in First Kings or Second Kings. And Ahab sees Naboth working his vineyard, and he asks Naboth, "Sell me your vineyard." And Naboth says, "No, it's my family inheritance." And Ahab goes and he sulks. And I'm sure the event went on for a while, but this last time, Queen Jezebel, Ahab's wife, sees Ahab sulking. And she chews him out. "You're the king. Whatever is bothering you, fix it. Tell me what it is." "Oh, Naboth won't sell me his vineyard. It looks so good." "Well, you wash up, you clean up, you get in a good mood. I'll take care of Naboth." You see, Ahab might have been gentle or showed gentleness with Naboth. And even Jezebel, in a way, shows gentleness to Naboth by sending some people out to where the village that Naboth is from and says, "You hold a feast for Naboth in his honor." And when he gets there, you have 2 worthless individuals that will stand up and say that he cursed the king and God, and then put him to death. You see, the gentleness is showing the act of gentleness would be having a feast in Naboth's honor. But it wasn't gentle, was it? So I don't think we can have gentleness without goodness. And I don't think we can have faithfulness without goodness. We all use the term "the goodness of my heart." From the goodness of my heart, the bottom of my heart, the goodness of my heart, I do these things. Or I do things for you out of the goodness of my heart. We may say that to a friend or to our spouse, maybe to a coworker, maybe to an employer. Whatever it is, out of the goodness of my heart, we do these things. The reason why I don't think we can have good faithfulness without goodness is because a lot of times we use the faithfulness, the act of faithfulness, to deceive someone without the goodness, to lie to that person. And in spirituality, in our spiritual Christian life, we may use it so that we can malign the way of truth. Goodness. If you're good and you're really showing goodness to be honest and true with someone, you won't care about what happens, will you? Oh, you don't want nothing bad happen to you, but you sure don't want nothing bad happen to anyone else. That's why you go around and you encourage people that are laboring among with you so that they may not lose heart. You go out and you encourage your neighbors to study the Bible with you so that they may have salvation. You may encourage a coworker to carry on, not to be discouraged about working where they're at, and help them achieve a goal that they may have, even if it puts you in a little bit lesser light, because you have goodness and you want to show it whether it's seen or not, because you have the moral excellence. I hope that you have goodness in your life. I hope that again, that these little devotionals are good and that you have learned something about what you need to have in your life. Until next week, God bless.